SWISS is said to be one of the best airlines in Europe, but my experience was completely unexpected. I got a flight cancelled, rebooked on a completely different airline, with a connection in a completely different country. So was SWISS worth the time and the money? Let's find out. I am now off the Air
So I
Canada
flew
Express
8
flight.
hours on Air Canada across the Atlantic, where I finally arrived in Zurich, Switzerland.
Today I'm flying Swiss Air, and I'm literally at the train station, going to the airport. The train is here. I've got a big luggage. It's big and fat, and we're getting on the train. I'm off the train, and we're getting up the escalator, and now we're in the airport. Because I just arrived in Zurich yesterday from Air Canada. Check-in, we did that from Pearson, so I couldn't do that for this video. But we're in the airport now, and we're going to the Swiss. Apparently Swiss Air has its own terminal. We have been checked in. By the way, there's 10 of us flying this flight, which is crazy. But I'll tell you more about it after security, but something hilarious just happened.
I said it was going to be hilarious, but in the end, it did not end up being hilarious. This is the departure board, showing every single flight that is supposed to depart out of Zurich Airport. All the red squares mean that flight has been cancelled. For reference, we were flying on July 19th, 2024.
I'm flying from Zurich to Krakow. Flight is on time.
After dropping off our checked bags, we headed through security to find our gate. Zurich Airport is very well laid out and easy to navigate, so we were through security in no time. My one complaint was that at security, I got randomly checked and my bag got double inspected because of a metal water bottle. After security, we found our gate, and I had this amazing view of all the planes pushing back and taking off. Now it was finally time for boarding, although when I checked the departure screen, we were not boarding. And this is when things took a turn for the worst.
Our flight got canceled, that's all you have to know.
And there you go, our Swiss flight has been cancelled.
So then we drove home. But 3 days later, we showed back up at Zurich Airport for our flight to Krakow.
We're there on Friday, so if you have some...
So once we arrived back at Zurich Airport, we headed into the Swiss terminal and got all checked in for our flight to Krakow. For our flights today, I'd be flying on a Swiss A320neo from Zurich to Frankfurt, and then on a Lufthansa A320 from Frankfurt to Krakow. Okay, I'm at the airport. I was supposed to fly Swiss Air 2 days ago, but here I am anyway. So basically, we were supposed to fly Swiss Air, but our flight got canceled, so they rebooked us with Lufthansa. But our first flight is Lufthansa operated by Swiss Air, so that's part of this video as well. Once we were all checked in and dropped off all our checked bags, we headed through security to find our gate. Even though this is Lufthansa, our first flight is operated by Swiss Air. Once we were at our gate, I looked out the window to find a bunch of cool planes. Today, we would be flying to Frankfurt on this Swiss A320neo. But finally, right on time, it was our turn for boarding the plane. Getting on the Swiss airplane. So I made my way to my seat, which was 6F. When I did the comfort test, the butt cushion seemed average, but the seat seemed quite stiff. I also noticed they put the Swiss logo on the headrest. My bag I noticed there was no in-flight entertainment, but only a magazine. I had tons of legroom, which is always nice to see. I noticed I had an absolutely massive seat back pouch to put my items in. I also noticed that I had 2 absolutely massive windows all to myself, which is a great touch. To top it all off, I had an awesome engine and wing view, which is my favorite kind of view to have on a plane. Before you knew it, we were already pushing back from the gate and getting those engines started. Then we began our 1-hour trip to Frankfurt. Once we made it to our cruising altitude, I decided it was time to explore the cabin a little bit more. I noticed that there was this Swiss logo on the wall, as well as a tracker that showed their exact location on the map. The flight attendants were super quick to get the snack service going, so I decided to check out my tray table. It was a nicely sized tray table with 2 cup holders, and it pulled out, which is awesome. Soon after, the flight attendants brought me my snack, which was a chocolate and a water. Fun fact, this water was bottled in the Swiss Alps, which made it taste absolutely delicious. Next, I went for the chocolate, which as well was amazing. But finally, we began our descent into Frankfurt. After a downtown flyby of Frankfurt, we were treated to a beautifully smooth landing. Welcome to Frankfurt, everybody. After we got off the Swiss plane, we caught our connection to Krakow. In fact, our Swiss flight arrived in Frankfurt was early by about 10 minutes. One thing that's awesome about Frankfurt Airport is that you have the opportunity to see super rare planes. When we were taxiing in, I saw an Airbus A340-300, a Boeing 747-400, and 2 747-8Is. For our next flight on Swiss, we took a weekend trip to Venice, so our next Swiss flight will be flying back from Venice to Zurich. So then we took a water taxi from Venice to the airport.
Hello YouTube, we are now back at Venice Marco Polo Airport for our flight on Swiss Air. So far, check-in process and everything was good. It said we were going to be on Air Baltic, but now they changed our flight from 2:55 to 3:05, so we're delayed by 10 minutes. And yeah, and we're here. I also want to say that I've never taken a boat to the airport before.
After checking in and getting through security, we found a spot to sit in the upper part of the terminal. All was going well, until this happened.
It is now 2:30 and the flight was originally supposed to leave at 2:55, and now we're delayed by 3:25, and we can't miss this flight, otherwise we miss my flight back to Canada. And I don't want to miss my flight back to Canada. It's now 3:08 and our plane has finally arrived. But I don't think they're going to get this thing turned out around an hour. Currently our departure time is 3:55 and the plane's still not at the gate yet, so I'm not sure what's going to happen. We actually have a gate. We're not on some crappy stand, we actually have a gate. Yay.
Then they changed the gate on us again.
We finally actually have a gate, which is gate 13. So yeah, we have an actual gate.
Finally, our plane actually showed up to the gate, but then our flight got delayed again.
Basically, we are now delayed till 4 o'clock, and they changed our seats on us.
But finally, after waiting over 2 hours for a delay, we finally began to board the flight back to Zurich. For today's flight, we were going to be flying approximately 1 hour on a Swiss A220 back to Zurich. Once on board the A220, I made my way to seat 5F. Doing the initial comfort test, the butt cushion seemed a lot more comfortable than on the first flight, but the backrest seemed really stiffened. Unlike the typical Swiss vibe, these floors were super dirty, but my bag did fit quite nicely underneath the seat in front of me. One of the plus sides about this seat was that I had a lot of legroom, and I was lucky enough to get a window seat. On the seat back in front of me, I had 2 very small seat back pouches, a full-size tray table, and a spot for the safety card and magazines to go. I also noticed that I had another screen that showed me the map of where we were. Then, I checked out the tray table. It was full-size, had 2 cup holders, and it even pulled out, which is always nice to see. The seat back pocket in front of me came with the Airbus A220 safety card and a Swiss Air magazine. I noticed that my seat also came with a coat hook. But before you knew it, we had already begun our pushback and begun the 1-hour journey back to Zurich. Once we had reached our cruising altitude, the flight attendants were very quick to bring out the snacks. Once again, I was served a bottle of water and a Swiss chocolate. Next, I decided to check out the overhead. There's a screen that showed our current location on a map, and it showed all the information, like our ground speed and our altitude above sea level. The light seemed to be in working condition, as well as the air conditioning. Since this was such a short flight, I fell asleep on the plane, and then when I woke up, we had already begun our descent into Zurich. Before you knew it, we came in for a nice smooth landing in Zurich. So we taxied to the parking stand, only to find another problem waiting for us.
Dear guests, I just opened the door in the front. It's very sunny outside, but unfortunately the bus did not arrive yet. I ask you.
So we just landed in Zurich about 3 hours later than we were supposed to, and now that we are here, we are parked in the stands and there is no bus to take us back.
But finally, after about 20 minutes of sitting there on the tarmac, we were able to get off the plane and there was a bus waiting for us.
Zur Gepäckausgabe, zum Arrival Duty Free und zum Ausgang.
So what's my final opinion on Swiss Air? I don't think they were terrible, but I definitely don't think they were great. If I had to rate them out of 5, I'd probably give them a 3. The flight attendants were all super nice, the landings were great, the flights were smooth, the snacks were delicious, and the seats were overall pretty comfortable. So, I'd say fly Swiss Air if you're looking for an average option. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Remember to like and subscribe.